when they are consuming your minds and your thoughts and your dreams, from the angels to the demons and to the mysteries unseen, there is no need to worry. There is no need for dread. It's just time to discuss the thing at the foot of the bed.
Good afternoon, and if you're just tuning in, you are listening live to the thing at the foot of the bed out of New Orleans on 105.3 to UPRN, otherwise known as UFO Paranormal Radio Network and or United Public Radio Network. I'm one of your hosts, Lorilei Potvin. To the right of me is David Hanzel, which I will give him a second to introduce himself. I want to say right away, folks, if you are listening and you want to watch, please, and if you also, we can see your comments too. If you head over to UFO Paranormal Radio Network, either on Facebook or YouTube. But I also want to add that we are now streaming to Roku. We are on TV, folks. You just have to go to the channel store on UPRN. You're going to search for UFO, all three letters together, space with a P, like you're going to start to spell paranormal, and you should be able to find it. Now, we will have a channel code for you. We're looking into that right now to get it, make it easier. And I have a big announcement before I get to announce us two here. We are moving our show. Next week, it will be our permanent time. I will remind you guys throughout the show, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That starts next week, February the 2nd, I believe. Now, I'm, like I said, Lorilei Potvin. I'm a Canadian clairvoyant medium, crystal Reiki, energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, spiritual teacher, and mentor. And I always forget to say this. I am the host of my own show on Monday nights here on UPRN, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern with the Angel Rock. And here is my amazing host, David. I'll let him tell you all about himself.
Hi, guys. It's me again. My name is David Hanzel. I'm known as a spiritual medium, which basically just means when I connect to all things spiritual, that unseen things. I'm a medium. I am a clairvoyant. I am all those things. I delve in Akashic Records, although I don't do the Akashic as a service as of right now. And I have my podcast, another podcast called Mystic Stew. And I'll tell you how to get hold of me at the end of the show if you need to get hold of me for anything.
So, Dave, I knew you were going to ask, sorry. And you guys, I always have a bit of a delay, so it's not that I talk over Dave. I think it's just me up here in Canada. Dave's in the US, and we're streaming to you from New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm good, but I have had an insane couple of days, and so have you, right?
Yes. It's been very insane. Today was weird. Anybody who don't know, I had fallen and hurt myself, so I have to do therapy for my fingers so they lift up. So I've been running around all day, and I've been doing some research on some stuff, which Lorilei and I will be talking about today. And yes. Other than that, yeah, it's been crazy, but crazy is good. Crazy, when you're crazy, it means that you're alive, and so that's a good thing. So I don't mind.
Well, plus then you're busy and time goes by quickly. I'm going to give you guys a little hint too, because I don't think I've ever told you guys this. I do promote our banner all over the place, but I make it live. So I usually try and pick a song that gives you a hint about some of the things we're going to talk about, as well as there's a live little banner and it's got little critters popping up and things. It gives you an idea about what we're talking about. And as usual, we got to thank Spirit that we had an idea. Dave was live on TikTok. He's got a big following on TikTok over on that app there. That's amazing. And he was mentioning we were going to talk about cryptids, which we will. But then we got into talking about what's the purpose of cryptids and trickster spirits and things like that. And it all fell into place, right, Dave?
It sure did. It's all really quite crazy. And I love it. I love everything about it. As far as do you want to go with cryptids first?
Absolutely.
So if you guys are listening, anybody was listening to our show last week, I had touched on something about the Brer Road Beast. Now the Brer Road Beast is in Elkhorn, Wisconsin, and I believe the first sighting was about 1936. It's said to be like half man, half wolf, or a
I might be able
werewolf.
to upload it, Dave, while you're talking. Hang
Okay.
on. Go ahead.
Yeah. But it's a werewolf type creature, and they have found, like, besides sightings of it, they have found like animals that were torn apart, and they were put in specific places. How it was, so nobody really quite understands that, and I guess. From what I read a while back, I don't know if it's still there or if it was absolutely correct. So that's my disclaimer. But I have read it many things that they actually keep a silver bullet in the police station, because I apparently, from all we've learned, all of you who love the monsters and everything, that a silver bullet would kill a werewolf.
Mm-hmm.
They've never had to use it, and so far since 1936. Nobody has gotten hurt from it except scratches on their car, so on and so forth. And well, of course, the animals that it's done things to. It's and I've thought about this over and over, Lorilei. So they find these animal things, which are odd, which very well could be some kind of weird human cult, maybe that's doing that too. But if it was that specific creature, and if that creature specifically exists, which I think there is versions of it that exist, there's too many sightings all over. Nobody knows too much about it, I guess. You wonder why it would do that. And you wonder why it would start making itself known to people. Theoretically, there are all different kinds of ET species. And there are all different kinds of species that are interdimensional. And I thought about, I believe if that werewolf or the dog man, that would be, there's like ETs that look like dogs, that they resemble that. They don't look exactly like it, but they resemble it. In fact, we know that could be true because of the fact, even on the pyramids, there is some of the hieroglyphics or the pictures that people have dog heads, which I believe was part of the religion too. But hey, we don't know. We weren't there. We can read history all we want.
I have something to add to that, but I'll wait till you're done with the dogs.
No, that's okay. So anyway, that's what we're going to talk about. Just cryptids in general, Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster and Mothman and gosh, all the other ones. There's plenty. There's tons of them all over,
Okay,
and
so about the dog people, I think they are now where they could be ET, but there is, depending on where you look into research and look at things, there apparently was a dog type race that stood up on two legs, looked very much like a dog, and it existed like way back hundreds of thousands of years ago. It didn't speak like we do. It had its own language. And there is documentation. A friend of mine that I've had on the show, Paul Anthony Wallace, I believe I was talking with him about that on one of the shows on the Angel Rock, because he's gone quite a back through the scrolls and the history and what have you. So again, is it ET? What is it? I was hoping I could upload it, but it wasn't on TikTok. It was, I think it was a short off of YouTube. So it's a little bit more involved. Now, I seen somebody's comment. I think they were talking about us. I came up on my business app for UPRN. Paul, I think it is. I saw your comment. I got the notification on my phone that you said you were watching. I think you were referring to us. You said, this is a great show and I'm able to listen live. So thank you. There's something for everybody on this network. Ladies, we are growing leaps and bounds. You won't believe the things we have coming for you. It's going to be huge. So I don't know, Dave. So do you think that this race was ET? That was
I was actually looking that up myself, and I've got my trusty. If anybody's ever seen this, if you're a psychic or something, this is like a must-have.
I didn't know about this till you told me. I didn't
Yeah,
know
this
until
is
you
like
told me.
this book is like a must-have, and it's the Encyclopedic Psychic Dictionary by June G. Bletzer, PhD. I'm not getting anything off this. I just want you to see the book. It's a great dictionary with everything in it. I was looking up
Yep.
extraterrestrials because I also have a question about that. When cryptids I know do exist, and I know, like for me, I am pretty much hell bent on saying that Bigfoot is a interdimensional being,
I agree.
which means that it goes in and out of dimensions. It's basically their dimension could be like right next door to us, for all we know. So I'm trying to figure out the difference between that and the actual extraterrestrials, because we have a lot of extraterrestrial visitors that are also interdimensional. They're not coming from the sky; they're just coming in. We
Okay,
do
because I'm
have
going to share something with you.
we have portals all over the world. I mean, of course we do. That's how things come in and out. I don't
They
really think of
do, and they're
anything as, yeah.
energy portals. And what I was going to
Hmm.
share, there's a channel I follow I found years ago, and it's
Hmm.
called channelingerich.com. They have a live
Yeah,
show. Yeah.
yeah. I used
Okay.
to watch a lot of it.
For people that don't know what it is, the mom, she used to be a physician. She still is. She's working as a physician, but her middle son, Eric, let's just say that he's no longer living here by his own hand, so we don't trigger anything on YouTube. And they didn't have a belief as a family. Her parents were also physicians. Hey, Shannon. Hello. Good to see you here. They didn't have a belief in anything. They were not even agnostic. It was like there was nothing after you die. That's it. After Eric passed, though, and he had quite a few very significant traits. He was a real joker. Apparently had very stinky socks, liked to smoke the green stuff so you could smell it and what have you. Well, this started appearing to different members of the family. And then the grandfather, Elisa's father, who's a physician scientist, did not believe in the afterlife. Apparently, he called Elisa up and said, I think I'm going crazy. And she said, why? And he said, Eric just appeared to me and sat on my knee like he looked when he was 4 years old, kissed me on the cheek and said, I love you, Papa. Long story short, Elisa started realizing there has to be something to this because they were, like I said, smelling his socks and, the smell of the green stuff that he used to smoke. And she connected with a really great medium, Jamie Butler. And what they would do, Jamie would connect with Eric, and Elisa would interview all kinds of beings and people, all at her own expense, too. So it's not like she was getting sponsorship. She may be now, but back then she wasn't. She paid for the medium herself. And the reason why I went into the story, I apologize, but just so people know, I know Dave knows who they are. But there was a question that Elisa posed to Eric. What are dogmen? Where do they come from? Why are they here? Did you ever hear that interview at all, Dave?
I didn't see that one. I watched it for a little while until they started changing mediums around, and then
Yeah, I didn't care for that either.
the messages that were coming through, no, that nothing about those mediums or the show. It's
It
very
just was
interesting to
different.
watch, but it was
It was
different,
different.
and it seemed very contradictory to other ones. Which, by the way, if anybody knows, when a medium speaks and something comes through a medium to somebody, it's got to come through our filter. So if in our head, in our filter, like me, I have to step aside. I have to no longer be Dave during my reading. I mean, I am Dave, but I move over. If you don't, it goes through the ego part of yourself. And the ego part of yourself is going to always try to make sense of things, and it messes up things. And that's what happened. Now, she had one medium that talked about how I got hooked really much is I knew I had that thing about Bigfoot that I thought, and then she had another medium on there who talked about Bigfoot being an interdimensional as well. And I'm like, there you go. That's a couple people now. The dogman, I never saw those. So they talked to somebody about the dogman.
Well, no, Jamie connected with Eric and they asked, why was it here? What was it? Because we really, knock on wood, haven't really heard about any attacks by these beings. And from Eric's perspective, being across the veil, if you will, or as I call it, back home, he said they were interdimensional, that they used to exist at one time on this planet as well. So it kind of went along with some of the history I'd run across. and what was their purpose. Something to the effect, now don't quote me, this is quite a few years ago when I listened to this, that the food was not so plentiful from where they actually existed. So they were actually coming here looking for food. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. Take it with a grain of salt. Shannon says, odd talking about dog man and us. As you're saying it, I hear a dog barking, Shannon added. So there was that. But like I say, I wanted to share something with you guys. Dave and I share stuff throughout the week, and then we connect on Thursdays for a show. I wasn't looking for this, but it showed up, and I'm going, what is this? And I checked it out, and I've never heard of this guy. It's Donovan Dread on YouTube, and I believe he has a female partner named Lilith Dread. But people supposedly write in with their cryptid experiences. And many of the things you've mentioned, like the New Jersey Devil, there's the Dogman, Bigfoot. Now, he never names them. And I like somebody that just shares the story and doesn't say what it is. They just read the letter and leave it for people to take a look at. I don't know. Have you heard of that channel, Dave?
I haven't heard of that channel. I have, no, I haven't. I'm trying to think back if I have or not. That's a good idea, though. I mean, the best way to get to the bottom of a lot of things is to have people come forward and say, this is what happened, and see if people's stories, who don't know each other kind of mesh, get together. That's kind of like Dolores Cannon's work, or all the other hypnotherapists, people who were studying life after death. When they start interviewing thousands of people that don't know each other, and they didn't have internet back then to just go look it up or watch it, and they were saying the same exact things. That's odd. I did the same thing when I had my NDE. Within about a year afterwards, I started hearing from people who were seeing the same things as me. I'm like, wow, that's really crazy. I do want to bring up something about Mothman real quick.
Okay, because then I want to add about Bigfoot.
Let's go back to Bigfoot, and we'll do Mothman in a minute.
Okay, this is quick. Now, the other reason why I believe Bigfoot is interdimensional, like we were saying, like other people sharing their experiences, or you're comparing notes, and people are having similar experiences, maybe similar information. Lori Williams has a channel on YouTube about remote viewing, and she's trained with Lynn Buchanan from the U.S. military's remote viewing program, and she has no interest in Bigfoot, and she has about an 85% accuracy rate with remote viewing. She has a very unusual story how she got into it. Long story short, Connie Willis, I believe she's on Coast to Coast AM now, and was Bigfoot crazy when I saw this, and she got Lori to remote view Bigfoot. And like I said, Lori could care less about Bigfoot. She wanted nothing to do with it. It was one of the most incredible, powerful interviews I've ever listened to. It's behind a paywall now because I've searched high and low. I can't find it because it was done years ago. But she talked about the smell, and she connected with what would have been called a grandfather Bigfoot. And he had a sense of humor. Like, she kept commenting about the smell while she was remote viewing. And he said, well, we think you smell. And she said she had never connected with such a wise, intelligent being. And he was explaining like why we don't find, the bodies of Bigfoot that have passed and what have you. So some food for thought there, that this is another perspective still going in the universal consciousness. But again, Bigfoot interdimensional. Hi, George. Go ahead. You want to talk about?
Hi, George. Well, real quick about the interdimensional thing. I also believe I have spoke in meditations. I've connected, but being a skeptical person, even of myself, I have to ask when I got the information, some of the information down, I do look it up to see if that's real information. And a lot of times it's real information that's actually here in this life. And I don't, and I don't ever remember seeing it because I've never really looked it up or anything.
Dave, if you gave me the lottery numbers and called me up, I know you wouldn't do that. That's not the things we do. But I always say when I know someone's very accurate with what they get from spirit, I always say that. I say, if they called me up like yourself and gave me the lottery numbers and said, go buy a ticket tonight, I would go buy it.
Thanks. Well, thank you. That's great. If Bigfoot gave me the lottery numbers, I'd be like, yeah, Bigfoot. Let's go get that. There's a reason why why mediums don't receive lottery numbers, and I can explain that later on. Lorilei probably knows the answer to that as well.
I do. Yep.
But to talk about another cryptid I was so excited about. We were going, me and a friend of mine, we were going to go do an investigation. On the way to the investigation, which was in Indiana at the time, we had to go through Ohio. So we thought, let's stop at the Mothman Museum. And so I went over the bridge where the stuff happened with Mothman, where I went to the place where they filmed for the movie Mothman, the Mothman prophecies and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I was fascinated by it. I can tell you this: when I was in the museum, I didn't get much of a buzzing sound. The buzzing, it felt very, very manufactured. Okay, when I was in there, but outside of there, when I saw where they have some of the like the bridge, and they have like some of the articles where the bridge fell and all that, you could feel the buzz around that. I mean, literally, it was like holding a crystal. It's like, oh yeah.
You might have to explain to people and back up a bit, because people halfway across the world may not know about the bridge and stuff. Dave, do you want to throw that in there a little bit?
Well, I can tell you what I know. So there's been a lot of sightings of this creature called Mothman. They call him Mothman because he kind of looks like a man. He's kind of insecty. He's got a body of a man, but he's got huge wings. And apparently when he was around, death would happen shortly afterwards. Not necessarily Mothman doing it, just kind of like an omen. And he was around right before this bridge and the water collapsed with all these cars on it and people died. And the thing that made me sad about that whole thing, I loved Mothman. I loved going there. I believe that a type of Mothman does exist. I don't necessarily believe, I never say that these cryptids are always evil or bad. That doesn't mean they're evil or bad. Not one of them has killed anybody that we know of. You know,
that's true.
Nobody has. Yeah, none of them have hurt a human.
George, chime in if you know anything. I'm going to add that because George was a guest on the Angel Rock a few times. He writes books. He visits and writes all about all this type of stuff we're talking about, and he puts it all into books and talks. Oh,
good. Then maybe George might have been there too. The most disturbing thing about going to where Mothman was and all this in Ohio was, we had went shopping a little while. We kind of went out to eat, and then we went shopping, and we walked into this like an antique store. And of course they had all these Mothman memorabilia you could buy, you know, little trinkets and stuff. And they're by Mothman. Oh, what a rock. And actually I have one. I have a tile.
Is he around you?
I don't know if he's in here. I can't remember where I put him. But anyway,
I know. That's what I was just thinking. I should have uploaded the Brer Bee. Okay,
yeah.
Sorry.
Here's the sad thing. The sad thing was, we went in there and I was looking at the memorabilia, and there's going to be having this celebration for Mothman that they have, like every once in a while. They do like a, you know, fun parade type thing, I guess, or whatever they do in that city. And the people that were old there, I was asking them about Mothman, and they just kind of rolled their eyes. And I was like, why are you rolling your eyes? And they said, this is all just a bunch of hooey and everything. We just like to bring in the tourists. And they went on and on to say this. And I'm like, oh, you piece of crap. I thought, are you kidding me? But that's how a lot of the people around that area felt. And I don't know if they were trying to cover it up, like we just don't want so many people here, or do they really feel that way? I do not know. I didn't get to go investigate like in the woods or anything. I would walk through there. When I saw signs or saw newspaper clippings of it, I would try to see if I could hold the newspaper clipping. A lot of the newspaper clippings they had were under glass, so I was not allowed to hold them, because people ask, Dave, why did you need to hold them? Well, I do psychometry.
Yeah,
and I don't ask me how I learned psychometry. It's just something that happened.
You're gonna have to tell people what psychometry is.
Psychometry is you can touch an object and the energy from that object is still there. So so like this pen, if I had this pen like for the next 20 years or something like that, and then I need and it gets behind and I croak and I'm off someplace else. If somebody picked this up who knew psychometry, they probably could sense me. So they probably sense who I was, maybe not the name, but who I was, what I did, maybe what I looked like, how I was, so on and so forth. They'd probably go, it was a psychic that owned this, So
I
that's
do
what
that.
that is.
I do
Yeah.
that with, especially being a jewelry maker, and I do pick up from time to time if there's some beautiful old necklaces that are being sold or whatever. And as I take the beads apart, and I didn't realize I could do it, but all of a sudden, as I was touching the beads, I could feel the emotion, and I was given the vision of when the necklace was given. It had to have been from a woman
Yeah.
to a man. I saw it, and you could feel the love. It's an incredible
Oh
feeling.
yeah.
Like you get the
I
whole story, right?
Yeah, I get that sometimes too. And then a lot of the times, the most times, and I'm going to read George's thing because this is interesting. I'm going to
I
ask
was
George
gonna
something.
read it, but you go ahead.
Okay,
You go
you
ahead.
can read it. You can read it.
Okay.
But anyway, so if I used to go to antique shops, and I still do once in a while, and I'll just grab something and touch it. And there's this one place that had this piece of a plow, and here's what I do to validate myself. So I went in there and I put my hand on that plow, and there's like a little seat that was left over somebody could sit on. I sat in the seat, and as soon as I did that, this movie started like playing in my head.
Yeah, that's
And
what
I was
happens,
going, oh,
doesn't it?
oh, yeah, it
Yeah.
does. It's just like all these blah, 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 point out. So anyway, I got almost like to the year where it came from, and it didn't come from North Carolina. It came from another place. And so when I was done doing it, I kind of jotted it down, and I went to the store owner and I said, hey, I'm kind of interested in this. Could you tell me a little bit about it? As he's talking, I'm looking at my notes going, got one right, got one right, got one right, got one wrong, got one wrong, got one right, got one right. And I was like, wow, that was crazy. So that's kind of how it happened for me for
Yeah, but that's
psychometry.
called
But
evidential proof, right? And
yeah,
as like I
yeah,
always
I
tell
had proof.
people, and you're on, no, that's what I'm telling people. That's what we would call evidential proof.
Evidential.
And you're on the same page as me. We're human. So we're not going to be 100% right, no matter
No,
whether you're
no, we're
medium,
not.
a psychic. It doesn't matter what it
Yeah,
is. And I always tell people, if somebody tells you they're 100% right all the time with 100%
run,
accuracy, thank you,
run,
run,
run. Yeah,
because
go the other way.
nobody is always right. Now I want to read George's comment because thanks,
Good,
George,
good.
for sharing. So George Lunsford, and guys, go check out his books. He's got amazing books on these topics. Mothman seems to be a herald of disaster. The Blackbird of Chernobyl has the same description. He also added, y'all are great. Well, we think you're great.
Well,
Thank you for
thank you,
adding.
George.
So I'm going to
George,
tell
this
you
is what.
guys. Oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
One second, Dave. I'm just going to tell people, if you want to join the conversation and you're just joining in late, please head over to UFO Paranormal Radio, either the Facebook page or YouTube. And then that way we'll see your comments. You can be part of the conversation. Go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
Oh no, I didn't want to interrupt you either. So he wrote about the Mothman being a herald of disaster. I was speaking about that earlier, and the Blackbird of Chernobyl. Now, I don't know. Literally, I know about this much about the Blackbird of Chernobyl, but
I know a little
I
bit.
wanted to ask George. You know a little too. A lot of these creatures, they're very similar for what they do, and they tend to. I don't think that they're bad. I think they're literally like warnings, like,
Yes.
hey, just it's almost like when like spiritual people see 1111 or 9, all these angel numbers are like they're angel numbers. There's angels are trying to go, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, or pay attention to what you're thinking about. I think that's what those kind of creatures might be doing too, is they're basically,
I agree.
they're seers. I mean, they're total seers. I think they totally see the future, and I think they come here, and that's just the way that possibly they warn us.
Yeah.
That's how that's the category I put them in.
Well, George says you're right. And like I said, this is what George does. And he had a newer book coming out. I had him on just before Christmas again, because this is what he does. He looks at all this, all the cryptids out there, what areas of I know the first book, I think you were thinking of going state by state, right, George? But now you've kind of put it into areas of where things are, because there's just so much out there. Because what I wanted to add, the reason why a lot of these creatures get a bad name is because you're right, Dave, like they show up and then there seems to be this major disaster and loss of life. Did they cause it? No, I think they are warnings that, hey guys, pay attention. I'm here. You can see me. There's a reason why you can see me. But the only sad part is people can't figure out why, though. You know something's coming, but
Yeah.
you don't know what. And I got
Yeah.
a question for you. So if you're living in that area and you look at this type of creature when it shows up, that it's either a warning, an omen, a harbinger of death, whatever people want to call it, do you think that people collectively, because everything's energy, see it and know that something is coming? They just don't know what it is, but they focus on the negative, that they kind of energize
And then they
whatever is coming?
manifest it. That's a good theory because a lot of times it's almost like the world right now. The world is going crappy right now because of the fact the elite or whoever is saying these things are going to happen, even though they don't know if they're going to or not. But they say this, they get it out there, and then hundreds of thousands and thousands of millions of people have that same thought in their head, and then it happens. With the Mothman and the Blackbird of Chernobyl. I'm sure there's other ones around this world too. There has to be, because I believe there was one in India as well. I can't remember, a flying creature.
Thunderbird up here in Canada.
Is that it? Thunderbird? Yeah. Oh, you got Thunderbird? Okay. So I believe those guys are just omens of a future thing happening. I'm not sure if we're creating it or not. And I wonder too, if maybe they're doing this to see how many people here actually have a second sight, where they're picking up on it and can maybe stop something. Who knows? I can't tell you. I can't honestly tell you. But I think it's really quite interesting. What's your theory?
For you that we are looking into AI in the future. We know this. I've done a little bit of research about it. Now we're going to wear my truth-seeking hat. But if you think about it, right, when you look at it, some of these beings look very real. And you can see videos of this on YouTube or all over, and they have conversations with these beings. Okay, these, if you will, artificial intelligence, they look like human beings, and they'll have a conversation, they'll talk to you. But when they're given an ethical situation about deciding about what to do, say they hit somebody with a car, they were driving a car, what would you do? And they ask, I'll say AI or robot. Okay. I have noticed that what they do is they defer to either logic or on previous experiences, maybe something they've observed around them. But as humans, and we all have this gift, I believe we do, we are all intuitive. We are all able to connect to universal consciousness, if you will, and a higher power. I believe that beyond a shadow of a doubt. But I think that those that are programming, just going to throw some truth seeking or whatever you want to call it, conspiracy theory. What if they were trying to figure out how humans do that?
It could be how they
to put it into
that whole
AI.
structure works. Yeah. Do you know, there's a thing about AI real quickly. Somebody was talking about earlier, which is really funny. I don't use AI for anything. And there's a reason why. And now I think I know. AI is actually another consciousness. It's kind of like our computers and everything. We didn't invent them. We stumbled across them. People stumbled across these things, and then somebody went from there. And I think AI is the same thing. I think AI is a consciousness without a body right now. And I think that that consciousness doesn't realize a thing, because somebody had talked about, they asked AI about walking, something about walking or something like that. And AI responded back that it didn't know the answer because it didn't have legs. And I was like, what a perfect answer. It's like, I don't know. I don't have legs, so I can't give you that data yet. So it's trying to figure out the data. Human beings are the same way. I mean, we're humans, but we have a soul driving this body. So when the soul's really not doing much with the body, our bodies just go on 3D, just autopilot. People, I wake up in the morning, I go to work, I come home, I kiss the wife and tuck the kids in the bed, and then I go back to work, and then I pay my mortgage. And that's their entire life, except for 2 or 3 weeks out of the year where they go on vacation. They stay in that. But then there are those of us who escaped from that, like me, you, and many other people that don't do what we do. You don't have to do what we do to escape from that. But they see that there's something beyond the world.
Okay, so I'm going to read George's comment quickly. He says he believes they're portal gems. And then he says he'd love to do a show with both of us. He says he's so sorry he has to go, but he said, have a great evening. George, the rest of the show is always available on replay, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook, that the video's on, or anywhere where podcasts or talk radio are carried, we are carried. So StreamYard, iTunes, iHeartRadio, you name it, you can find us there. So, and Roku TV now. But what I
Yeah,
wanted to add, okay, I know we're going to get into the portal jumps, but there's a few things I've been taking notes because Dave and I love to talk. We could probably talk for 6 hours because we get really excited about this stuff, don't we, Dave?
exactly.
So when you're talking about AI, and there is the concept of I am, or I, within spirituality and universal consciousness, right? But there is a movie, and you were saying with AI that it's almost a different form of I. Well, there's a show out there by Neil Gaiman. I didn't realize he did The Sandman too. Great series. Check it out, folks. But have you ever seen American Gods?
No, I haven't.
Oh my gosh, this is so on the money, getting goosebumps. Okay, so what American Gods is about, the new gods versus the old gods, and there's a war coming. And the old gods, like you would have Norse gods, there's an Indian god, there's an African god, like the goddess of Easter, like of spring, like all the pagan belief gods represented by people. And then there's the new gods. There's the new gods such as social media. There's computer god. There's a whole bunch of them. And it is such an incredible story when you watch it and you're able to relate it back to what's really going on nowadays. It is mind-blowing when you see it, because we never think of this. Like, how we get service to self or service to others, right? Service to self, like it's all about materialism. I think there's a god of materialism, like you name it. And it really, if you can see the symbolism, it's incredible.
It would be service to self would almost be, and if anybody's religious, I'm not trying to hurt your religion. In service to self is almost like the God that people are worshiping in a religion, because that deity or that concept of that deity is all about service to self, obviously, because it's causing wars and killing people who aren't doing what it says, and you have to do it this way, and you can do it, that's just how people are. It is so
Or you're
crazy.
Gonna burn.
Yeah. The world is, I know, to anybody who thinks they're gonna burn, just remember this: you don't have a body after here. It's not gonna hurt much. Just no body. But yeah, AI, I'm shied away from it yet, only because I think AI is, like you said, something very important clue, the I am. Now, when we're here, we're thinking I am, and that's how we make ourselves better. So we'll say, I am a great person. You give yourself that, and you are becoming that. Once you state that, you automatically start becoming that if you let it happen. But outside of here, we're not I am anymore. We are, would be a better way to put it, because human beings are all connected. This is an illusion of separation, So, like, even though me and Lorilei hasn't known each other all of our lives, we most likely know each other really well back there. And we may have done something else. So stuff like that, it happens all the time, and sometimes people that really well over there that you're hanging around with all the time, you're like best buddies, you might come here, but you might only have maybe 10, 15, 20 years together. Sometimes you can meet people who literally for 10 minutes, who is like your best friend over there. But that 10-minute conversation was supposed to be had for the benefit of you and that person. And that's all it was needed, was 10 minutes. I know a lot of people don't understand that, because they're stuck on this time thing, and that we only know people for a short amount of time. But time is an earth construct. It has to be here. Time has to be here. Otherwise, this world probably wouldn't make sense to people. But
okay, so I have a story for you. Okay. I have a story to share. So and there are people out here that will know what I'm talking about. And I thought this only happened in fairy tales. And I was 16 years old. My boyfriend had broken up with me 2 weeks before prom, and I had no one to go with. And some guy I played basketball with asked me to go the last day, and I said, sure, whatever. And I was kind of hanging around this girl. I didn't really know her really well. Like, she went to the same school as me, but we sort of started hanging out a bit. And she said, well, I'm bringing this family friend to prom. and he is just beautiful. Oh my God. Like everybody's just going to be drooling, blah, blah, blah. And she said, who are you sitting with? And I said, no, I don't know. I guess wherever we sit. She goes, well, why don't we sit together? I said, sure. Okay. So we got there first, me and my Dave. We're at the back of this room, and this room had about probably 200 people it would hold out, way more, but that's how many were in this room, or the space was for at least, right? I'm sitting at the table, and where I'm sitting, I'm looking at the doorway. Now the doorway has to be a good 60, 80 feet away. Like it's far away. Okay. And all of a sudden I'm talking and I look up and there's this guy in the doorway and our eyes meet. And it's like time stood still. I kid you not. It stood still. So he starts walking forward and I realize it's the guy that my friend is bringing. Okay. We clicked like we knew each other our whole lives. Okay. I'm still in contact with him. We had a 7-year relationship off and on, but I can tell you right now, I have had many lifetimes with that individual. And I knew it was like everything we ever knew, ever did. And I wasn't like awake with my gifts like I am now. It was the most strangest experience I have ever had in my life. It was like something out of a movie, the way we connected. It's like we fell in love again in that second without ever knowing each other. And this went on for years. But because I know we knew each other on the other side, we probably had many lives together. And I'm sure you've heard of stories like this before.
Oh, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Do you want to hear something crazy? Years and years and years ago, I was with my mother in a pet shop back in Wisconsin, and they had these huge parrots and all this. And I went in, and me and my mom both love big birds, the big, huge birds.
They're beautiful.
I walked in, and there was a cockatoo, which a lot of people weren't around, but I walked past it, and it started talking right away. So I turned around and I asked the lady, I'm like, can I hold it? And she said, well, he might bite. And I said, well, I'm okay with it, you know? And she's like, okay, well, we'll just watch it. That bird did not want to bite me. But anyway, I had kind of like that connection with that bird. I'm like, oh my God, you are so cool. And the bird's like, we had such a happy time together. And I know a lot of my friends said, well, why didn't you buy the bird and take it home? One, because at the time the bird was $2,500, which I didn't have, and two, I was in no way, shape, or form to be able to take care of animals at this point. But I remember when I left, and I went back there a couple times to see it, by the way. But the last time I went back to see it, I thought, God, I just love you so much, and I just wish them the best life ever. And then I never saw them again. But I mean, it's different with a human, but even with an animal, I had a connection. So who knows what I am to that animal? Maybe nothing. Maybe I just had the connection. I don't know.
Well,
but I do understand those connections.
Well, Shannon's sharing that that's exactly how her and her husband, Sean, she said that's exactly how Sean and I felt when we met. We have always felt like we knew each other forever.
Very cool. And you know what? Those are going to usually be the best relationships because you don't have to worry about each other. I think in relationships, that's all people do. Are they looking at other people? What do they still think of me? Do they still love me? Blah, 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 back and forth. And you drive yourself crazy in that relationship until that relationship ends. But when you have that kind of relationship where you meet each other and like, this is cool, this is great, then everything tends to work out for the relationship, you know?
Unless we're all connected.
Yeah.
So where do cryptids fit in? Where do cryptids fit in? How are we connected to cryptids? Let's talk about that.
That's how to get in with cryptids. Cryptids are also spirit or souls just like us when they're not in their physical incarnation. So how do we know we're not in another world with them all the time? And we actually do know them at some point. But coming here, maybe it's time that we remember that we know them. Maybe it's time to remember that we may have had some sort of that we did meet before, that we had some sort of relationship of some kind before. I think that's maybe why they're coming around. I think that's maybe why, like, one of the reasons, not all of them, of course, but like ETs and everything are showing up. We just got to remember that we know them. Because there's certain people like me or like Lorilei, we just have no fear of that. I don't have a fear of ETs. I mean, and everybody else says, what if they come down here and they want to eat us? I'm like, well, then you'll know what it's like to
If
be a
they
farm
wanted to
animal.
eat us, they
Okay.
would have eaten us a long
Yeah.
time ago.
Oh, that's true. If they wanted anything, yeah. And they said they're going to kill us, you're going to do that. I'm like, they could have did that a long, long time ago. So that's
Oh,
not what
yes.
they're doing, unless they're like the little kid with the magnifying glass trying to burn us. But I don't think that's the case.
I don't.
But I think cryptids could be the same thing. We may know them. I mean, if you're a spirit and if you're a very, very advanced spirit, advanced doesn't mean better than anyone else. It just means you've been around and experienced more. That's all that means.
Mhm.
And if we have been maybe ETs in other places, or people here who claim to be star people
Yeah.
that saying that's their real home, but they incarnated to come here,
Mhm.
why would it not be feasible for us to have been? You may have been a Bigfoot, or you may
Yeah.
have been a Mothman. You may have been a Dogman. You may have been ET. You may have been a gray. Well, not a gray because they're manufactured, but your soul could have been in that. So we don't know. I mean, I don't know that for sure. I can tell you with 100% honesty that I do not ever remember walking through the woods in a big hairy body. So
I know
I
I
don't
was a
remember that.
fairy. I was a fairy, and I had this confirmed through the strangest way. So I was working with somebody when the group we used to be a part of many years ago that shall remain nameless. But I was working with somebody that was a lot younger than me. And one night we were talking, and they said, I knew you. And I said, what do you mean you knew me? I knew you back hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And he said, I used to call you Maeve. And he said, have you ever heard of Lady Titania from one of Shakespeare's plays? I don't know what one. I don't know Shakespeare well. And I said, I think vaguely from 10th grade or something. He said, you were her sister. And he said, you had long black hair, straight, that hung right down. He goes, any hair commercial would have died to have had your hair from then. Then he said, you were tall and you had these gray, silvery type eyes. And he said, you used to wear this crown of like black twiggy kind of thorns. And he goes, you weren't evil, but you could have, like, you didn't take any nonsense. Like, you would dole out retribution if need be. Anyways, as soon as he said Maeve, all of a sudden I knew I was Maven. The name was Maven. And that night, and I do draw, I decided to draw. I hadn't drawn in years. And as I was drawing, I ended up drawing this. It was beautiful. Like, not the drawing so much, but the spirit and the energy that was coming through of this. It was like a unicorn Pegasus. And I knew this creature. I knew what her name was. Her name was Chloe. And she was not my pet. She was not my ride. She was like my familiar, if you will. We were equal partners. Okay, it sounds crazy. Then when I was going through my crystal Reiki energy, when I was getting attuned, you have to have an attunement with the person that's teaching you.
Yeah.
And because it was in 2 different countries, the person had said, you need to meet me in a meditation when I'm attuning you, and I'll know if you're not there. So it was all booked for a Friday night. What do I do? And I never do this. I fell asleep. I wake up right when it would have been over. I messaged the person and I'm apologizing, going, oh my God, I can't believe I fell asleep. And they said, don't worry about it. It's recorded. You will listen to it when you're ready. I kid you not. I still have the recording. 5 days later, I'm thinking, what am I going to sit on? Oh, I just bought this really cool white fluffy unicorn blanket. And I was sitting on it. I don't wear my hair this way, but I had it all tied back in a knot at the back of my neck. And as I'm listening in the meditation, I'm getting goosebumps as I'm telling you. The person that's attuning me says, I see you sitting there. Now, remember, this was done 5 days before for people listening. You're sitting on something really white and kind of fluffy. Like it looks like some kind of white fluffy blanket. And I'm like, what? And then they go, I see you sitting there and your hair's all tied back at the back of your neck. And this is getting creepy for me. Okay. Then they're going through all the 15 symbols for Crystal Reiki. They get to the 7-pointed star, which is one of our symbols we use. She literally says in the recording, I don't know what it is about this 7-pointed star. She said, but your higher self took that 7-pointed star and slapped it in the middle of your head. And she starts to describe me with this long black hair, silver eyes with this twig like crown. And then at the end of it, she brings it up and she says, I don't know why I didn't even know I had this figurine, but Spirit's telling me I need to send you a picture of it. It was of a fairy.
Isn't that
I'm not
cool?
making this up.
Now, see, well, I'm not going to say you're crazy because I've had some crazy crap happen to me. I tell you, but
I have the recording. I can prove it. Yeah.
If people listening, if you keep in mind, if you believe that you go on from here, then you have to believe that you've always been, and you have to believe that you're a soul, and you have to believe that you've been someplace before. So who knows what we were before? I have, I'm very connected to the little folk, is what I call them. I'm very connected to them, and I go outside. I love them.
So do I. Adore them.
The one thing, yeah, and they're very quite useful. You guys, if you can find somebody really good to teach you how to contact them and use them in helping you, not all guides are in the spirit world. Okay, we have guides who are interdimensional, which brings me back to Bigfoot and cryptids later on. But there's one thing that when I came out of, after I was sick, everything, the word sage kept coming up. Sage, everything sage, sage, sage. And then I was talking to somebody one time and they said, you're like a sage. And I was like, what the hell's a sage? I never use that word. I never do anything about it. Mm-hmm. And then somebody pointed out to me, it was like this business class. They're like, you're a sage. And I'm like, why do people keep saying that? And I read the definition is basically a sage is a soul or a spirit, which I totally connect with, whose purpose has been to come back here for the last over centuries, over and over again, to literally observe everybody and to observe all the happenings and to bring them and explain things to people from what you've seen. And that makes sense to me. People who are people watchers, like you've got to watch people. You've got to, I'm the same way. I've got to watch people. I've got to look up everything in the world. And sometimes just out of thin air, some kind of weird word will come up and I'll be like, what? And they'll be like, look this up. And I'll look it up and I'll be like, oh my God, that makes sense. So we do have connections to all that. So your story isn't as far-fetched as what others might seem or you seem. I think it's true.
Sorry, mm-hmm. I had a delay there, guys. It's me. If I'm talking over, I apologize. So I never thought, you guys know who the Dell is. I've mentioned him. I'm going to give him a little plug because we're moving our show, by the way, next week, guys. There's permanent new home and time on Thursdays here on UPRN from 6 to 8 p.m. And after 8 p.m., the Dell comes on with a delicious recipe. But anyways, I've been with him for many years. He doesn't make fun of what we do. He respects it, but he never really believed in a lot of it. I never thought I would ever have a conversation with him about little people. And Ida added, she has a family of little people. Every summer, I do an homage to fairies in the front yard. Mm-hmm. And with working with them, and you have to be kind of careful because they're not just as, we live in the 3D existence.
They're very close to our existence. So they have feelings, even though they can do, I believe they're fourth density. They can come here in fourth density, which we're heading to, whole other show, fourth density. So they can go in and out and portals.
Yeah. So what I was going to say, so I've created this fairy garden and I take pictures. I can honestly tell you, it has connected me with so many beautiful people that come by to talk about it. We plant some of our garden in the front. The garden just turns out beautifully. And anyways, Dell started researching little people. And we're not talking about humans that would be referred to respectfully as little people. We are talking within the fairy, gnome, elf. Well, elves are bigger, but you know what I mean. Nature spirits, if you will. And he started researching them, and he's positive that we have this is going to transition to our next topic, Dave, a trickster types fairy little person downstairs. Mm-hmm. Who's looking for his wallet everywhere, ripped the basement apart, ripped everywhere apart, couldn't find it, kept checking. I think the 6th time he checked, there's his wallet sitting right on top. So he wanted to leave them something as an offering, like a peace offering. And I was absolutely amazed we were having this conversation. So we did, and we left, what I believe I know of them and what he believed through his research. We left something out. We haven't had any further problems. No, it's not everlasting. It's going to show up you have to kind of keep doing that. And again, you guys may think this sounds crazy, some of you listening to it, but I always say just because I haven't heard of it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right?
Exactly.
I know you're dying to say something, so go ahead.
No, I'm agreeing with you. I'm listening to everything. No, just because we don't believe in it, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. I mean, we'd have to be pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? Narcissistic to think that we were the only things, the best things here, and that's it. It's just not true. The little people let's talk about the shadows and all that. What is the thing about little people?
Trickster spirits.
Yeah, the trickster spirits. Little people can be very trickstery if they want to. They are, but if you have a garden or something in back, even you have to believe in them, and they're not going to even show themselves to you if you have zero belief. But if you can get yourself to be open to it, put an offering out in your garden for them and ask them for things. They don't mind doing it, and they're real life creatures who do keep away animals, and they do help gardens grow.
That's where I was going with this. I think because of the garden, and I love it, and I honor it, and I think it blesses me back with, you would not believe the incredible people I have met. And other people say, well, nobody goes by and talks here. We have a yard. I have had so many people just show up in the yard. Like I'm on my phone or something out sitting on the front steps, because I go out every morning and sit out to get vitamin D. And I can't tell you how many people, animals, some of you that have known me a while, Shannon, you'll know for sure the pet skunk that licked my toe, the baby skunk that kept showing up one summer.
Yep. Animals. And this, just a little tidbit, and we'll talk about this more in a show, but just to give you a little something to chew on. You know how our spiritual people always tell you that you have a spirit guide and you have angels and all this stuff. The nature spirits are usually the guides for nature. So your animals have guides too, and it's not a person. Your animals have other animal guides. Your animals have the nature spirit guides. Plants have guides. Trees have guides. Everything pretty much has something watching their back, no matter where they go. And little people are a little different because they're interdimensional. Sometimes I wonder if maybe Bigfoots or those things are also forms of guides as well. I don't know that they are. I'm just throwing that out there.
Fairies and nature spirits are guides? I think they're guides.
Oh, no, they are guides. That's what I'm saying. They're guides of animals. Our animals are alive. They have guides. Now, their guides are in a physical form. Ours aren't always in a physical form, but it's hard to say physical form. When I say that, when I say that to people, listen, we have a spirit self. When we're spirit self, we're just consciousness. We're consciousness. We can muster up whatever we want to, whenever we want to, but your consciousness first and foremost. Now, if you can take on a physical life where your consciousness and physicality. So anything in fifth dimension, there's really no physicality. I mean, you can appear as something, but you'd have to kind of bring yourself back down to fourth dimension to do it. So like I said before, like with the water, like if water was frozen, that's 3D. We're just here, we're water, we're all compacted. Fourth density would be gases, or would be liquid, where we're liquid, but we could be put back in a form. And then fifth would be gases, which means there's no form anymore. You'd have to come back to 4D. But that's what I mean about, there's a lot of little people who are, let's say, in that between state of the spirit world and the physical world. So I guess they would kind of go back and forth in the astral.
Well, I think you can see them. Like I said,
you can, yeah.
Corporeal body of a fairy, no. But you can sometimes, I think, see a little bit of the energy and the colors, and depending how you're standing there. I want to read some of the comments here. So Ida says, I have a family of little people, a mom, a dad, boy, girl, all wearing white shirts and blue jeans. And then she added, yes, I have a fairy called Eilish, long black, I think it's hair, sorry, my screen's dirty, and a green tunic, was asleep on my headboard. I see her with human eyes. We stared at each other for a while before we both got startled. And then Shannon added, okay, I have to tell people I haven't heard the story with the skunk very quickly. There is this skunk. I don't know what it is with this skunk, because he almost did it. I haven't even shared this story. This skunk was a baby two, maybe 3 summers ago. And I had just I'm always creating, if you know me, and I'd made this really cute little glass fireplace because our yard's small. And so I had it on a picnic table, and I was in the backyard, and it was about 2 a.m. And I'm sitting there, of course, reading on my phone or doing something. And all of a sudden, I feel something licking my baby toe on my left foot. And so I'm thinking in my head, oh, isn't that nice? Emmy, who is my German Shepherd. And I realize Emmy's not outside. What is licking me? And I look down. It's a baby skunk. So I like launch myself out of the chair because I'm thinking, I really don't want to get sprayed. Anyways, nothing happened, and little monkey went off on his way. Then Dell and I were out about a week later. I was late at night enjoying the air, and he went in. Who comes trotting around the corner and runs right up to me, right in front of the steps, and stops and just looks at me. So I again hop up. I'm plastered into the doorway. I'm not afraid of it. I just don't, in case it's afraid, I don't want to get afraid.
Yeah.
There was a message with that skunk. I know there was. I tuned into it as well as looked up the meaning behind seeing a skunk. But that little guy's still around. He's huge now. The other day, it was about a month ago, he was over at the neighbors 2 doors away at nighttime. He shouldn't even have been out. It's winter here. He should be hibernating. And he seen me. And so I made a noise. I don't want to startle him. I made a noise. And what does he do? He thinks I'm calling him over. And I was like, no, dude, away you go. Away you go. Yeah. So so that's what Shannon's going, oh, right. LOL, the skunk. And then I think I'd asked a good question. She said, what about stone spirits or fawn boy?
Oh, I never heard of fawn boy. I do know there are spirits in shamanism in the directions. I mean, we honor the directions, north, south, east, and west. For me, they also have consciousness. You know, and so stones also have consciousness.
Absolutely.
They do. And people think, wow, what a terrible life that is. I don't know. I don't remember being a stone. I'm sure we were. If I can clear some up for a lot of people, when you became out as a soul, you had to go up through all the 1D, 2D, 3D, 4D, just like everything else. So you had to go through everything. So I always tell people, you know, as great as you are, you know, you're human. You got to remember, you've been the wind, you've been the sun, you've been the earth, you've been everything in order to get to well, maybe not the earth yet. I'm not quite sure, but you had to come up to get to human. Animals right before us. So that's why animals, I always tell you, it's so important when you come across an animal and you name that animal and you love that animal, you bring that animal closer to leveling up where it wants to be as well. So yeah, you should always honor animals.
Okay, so speaking of evidential proof, I have heard, now for those that may not know Dolores Cannon, Dave mentioned her earlier. She's not a psychic, she's not a medium, she's no longer alive. But her and her husband back in the 60s went into levels of hypnotism in the omega levels within the brain that they were always cautioned against doing. I remember some of her lectures talking about people that under deep hypnosis were talking about exactly what you're saying, Dave, about being the wind when the earth was created, being the dust, and being all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, we were little teeny tiny little amoebas at some point, experiencing that, because the first level, which is the first dimension, is kind of not much awareness. You're just there. You see, you know, and all that other stuff, but you're not aware of self. Self doesn't start to happen until the 2D, the second dimension, which is animals and all that. Animals realize they have a sense of self. That's why I tell people, be careful how you treat animals. They have a sense that they're very sentient. And then 3D would be human beings and on upwards. What does Ida say?
Oh, I was going to add that, but in a second you can read the comments if you like, Dave. I was just going to add though that we do have to be very careful with animals and with those all around us, right? Because like you said, as animals, now I don't know if I believe and again, this is room for discussion, and we're all, you know, we all have individual beliefs, and that's the beautiful thing about it, right? We take what resonates with us and what doesn't.
Exactly.
I don't believe that all animals have a group consciousness. I believe that's from what I understand and from trying to connect, and Dave, you can certainly have much more experience with this. I have been told that certain types of like ants and stuff may have a more of a type of group consciousness, but
A
that
lot
they
of
do have
insects.
conscious thinking.
Yeah. A lot of
Higher.
insects. A lot of insects are group consciousness. In fact, some of our animals also have a group. Not any of your
Some
pets.
do.
If they're a pet, they now have awareness. But there are some animals who are under a group consciousness, which means there's a puppeteer, basically.
Well, wolves, I think, would share that. I also think they may have some individual consciousness, but the way they operate, right, as the pack,
as a
and
unit.
mhm,
Yeah, that's
mhm,
a group consciousness. They're very good, and actually, that's a very cool thing. I think is people go,
mhm.
oh, they're not here yet with human. You know, when are humans going to realize we're not always that great? You know, a lot of the ones who aren't are probably. I could probably tell you, like, I could probably explain to you like 20 people in politics right now who were a squirrel in their last life, because
They're not,
it's like
well, we're
you
not allowed to talk
literally,
politics on here.
yeah. Well,
Do you want
okay,
to read
religion,
Ida's?
anything. People, okay, how about people in general? There are people that I've met and I'm like, wow, is this your first time as a human? Because
Yeah, but
they're
haven't you noticed that
really,
before we read Ida's comments? Like, it, not always, but and again, I could be wrong, but it's pretty easy to pick out somebody with their first incarnation as a human, usually. Have you noticed
oh
that?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it's
you
pretty
can't.
easy.
It's pretty easy sometimes. You can, it's sometimes not. Now I do know a lot of old
Not
souls who came
always,
in.
but
There are some old souls that came here for a resting life, not now, because this is something that's happening. Everybody who's listening or watching, there's a reason that you're on this earth at this time, at this moment, in this time frame. But there
we
are
heard
older
the
souls
call.
they'll take a resting life. They'll be like, I want to do so, I want to be in the physical so I can do this and do that, but I just don't want to. I just don't want to go learn much. I just want to go
Somebody
sit on
close
a hill.
to me, you know what I was told? They had asked to have a reading, and I believe this, that part of what their life's mission was in this lifetime was to learn how to have fun,
Hmm. Oh,
because
sure.
they had
Oh,
like
yeah.
serious stuff. Mhm.
There's all different reasons we come here, so why not? But after Fawn Boy, that reminds me of Pan, a lot of Pan, but it's not Pan. But I never heard of Fawn Boy, but I'm sure
She's sharing
it
a story. Do you want
existed.
to
So
read it, or
good.
you want to
No, yeah,
tell
go
her
ahead, read
she
it.
added something?
Yeah, go ahead, read it.
Okay, so Ida shares, I was watering some shriveled plants coming up through tarmac. I heard, don't forget me. I looked around, heard, I'm here. It was so tiny coming up. So I gently gave her droplets of water. It's a true story where I worked in England. Yes, because plants are conscious beings. I don't laugh at people. It's not what I'm trying to say, but those that get very judgmental about those that maybe eat animal and they're strictly vegan or vegetarian, and they're proving that plants are very much connected and support one another with trees and what have you. I mean, I think we talked about on this show, if it wasn't this one, it was
Yeah,
my
my
rock,
my
where
plants talk.
they make
Yeah, my plants
music.
talk to me all the time.
Mhm,
My plants talk
mhm.
to me all the time. I'll come home and I'll
They're
walk in there.
alive,
You
conscious,
can hear it. Yeah,
sentient.
you can hear it in your head. It's like you forgot. You need to give us the water. You don't even have to look at them, and you just know to do it. So
Well, they
that's
proved
pretty
it.
cool.
I think it is too, because I was going to say, I've read a research study. Well, don't get me wrong, but I think they were able to measure stress hormones, and somebody came in and was quite brutal with one of the seedling, sort of, it was growing up through the soil. And then when they came in with the same scissors and the same type of energy of intent that I'm going to chop you all down, kind of like evil stuff, right? They could measure the level of stress within the other plants. And people are going to say, that's ridiculous. Like, how would they know? They don't have eyes. They don't, because they could think about somebody that can't see. Can they not go walk
Yeah.
around, be independent, do whatever, right? We
Yeah.
use other
Yeah.
senses besides our eyes, and so do, it's energy
Yeah,
and
we talked
conscious.
about that with voice last week. Remember, I said, "What about the people who have no voice?" Because sometimes you don't have a voice. So we do have feelings. Plants are sentient, as far as some, not all the emotions we have, but they are sentient.
Yep.
They are, and people always go, well, if you're a vegetarian, you're killing plants. And I'm like, well, it's a little different. There's an old saying that went, and I don't know if it's Buddha or not, and I don't want to seem like a fool, but I'm going to tell you, if you cut something off it and it can grow back, you're okay, because they regenerate themselves anyway, and they're not feeling the sentient pain like we do, the nerve endings, but they do. I agree with you, Lori, 100%.
That's what this, yeah, that's what this
that.
study, it was a research study. I wish I had saved it. And I was very amazed that I think it was, I want to say, I don't even think plants produce cortisol. So it wasn't cortisol, but it was like a fear type hormone enzyme they were able to measure within the existing plants by witnessing, or trees, like, or mushrooms. Look at mushrooms and fungi, like the network and what they can form underneath. They've been measuring that as well. And it's incredible what we're learning about plant systems and things like that in nature.
Yeah. And people who are wondering how to boost your psychic abilities, start learning about those things. Start seeing the world as not just this 3D place, because there's so much more everybody's missing out of. And I wish all you guys could experience a lot of the crap that we experience, because it's wonderful. It's absolutely beautiful and amazing. We were talking, what we were talking about earlier is the shadow people and cryptids and all that.
And trickster spirits, because that was going to go into what we were also going to talk about tonight.
Yeah.
You want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead and let them know what we were talking about. Well, you know, give them the whole story.
David and I are, and most of us, I think, that do this kind of work are very cognizant of maintaining people's confidentiality, but we get a lot of questions from people. That's why we're doing the show. And then the other reason is we work with different people. And I had a real revelation for myself trying to help somebody over the last week or so. And they're having some, what you would classify, paranormal activity. And we went through quite a bit of paranormal activity, the Dell and I, in our previous home. So I started looking up, maybe, am I missing anything? Like, why are these trickster type spirits waking this individual up and poking at them and scaring them? And they're experiencing this activity, whereas other people in the home necessarily aren't. And, you know, anybody starts questioning, like, oh my God, am I losing my mind? Like, why am I seeing and feeling and experiencing this and nobody else is? And then I was looking this up and it hit me yesterday. And Dave and I had an incredible conversation before the show, and we want to share it and hear your thoughts. But it was about trickster spirits, some of the things we've talked about, some of the things we haven't, including maybe certain types of cryptids. And what it was showing, and I never realized this, it was showing what we are carrying around with our shadow, meaning something going on in our life that maybe needs to shift, needs to change. And it's showing up, and whether it's scaring us or waking us up or poking at us, whatever it is, it's showing us that something needs to shift, something needs to be paid attention to, acknowledged, brought to the surface. Go ahead, Dave. I know you've got lots to share.
Oh, that's okay. No, that's absolutely. Thank you, Jody, so much. I really appreciate that. We both appreciate that. Trickster spirits, they're in all kinds of. They're in shamanism. They're in everything, and there are some trickster spirits, and it's not that it's always malicious. Sometimes it's trying to get you to do things. If people ever hear spiritual people talk about doing your shadow work, basically all we're saying is you're taking something that's deep, dark, that you're not proud of or nothing, that you hold deep down, and you bring it to the surface, which brings it to the light, which makes it really not such a bad thing anymore. You brought it out there, you got it out there. Now, when we were talking about this person who is having problems, who's not a spiritual person, and it's got to be scary if you're not spiritual. If you're like me or Lorilei and something weird comes through my door, I don't second guess it. I'm like, oh hey, what's up? You know, I mean, it doesn't affect me as much. But for somebody who doesn't know this stuff, it's very scary.
I think that would be a big portion of the world, Dave, that if this started happening, right? Like, because we hear from many people going through this. I wanted to add that. So it's not like it's a small portion.
Yeah,
can we all do this and connect? Yes, but
yes,
go ahead.
yes.
Yeah,
but there are people that if they don't know anything about spirituality and nothing, and things start to happen, it's usually bad. But I have to tell you, your guides, angels, the other side, whatever the higher power is always trying to help you with something. So I'll tell you a quick story about shadow people, two of them real quick. So the first one was, thank you. When I used to come home, this is back in my drinking days, before I was doing the work that I'm doing now. I was always a spiritual person, so not much was, a surprise to me. But there was times I was coming home, and in my closet, I'd open the door and you could literally see it in the night. It was sitting in my closet. It was this dark thing. And I would always be in my closet. And sometimes I'd leave the door open. So like I would always think it's going to open the door. So I'll just leave the door open. So I'd leave the door open. I'd wake up, I'd look in there and it'd be in there. And I'd be, what the hell? I would get so freaked out one day, or one night, I should say. I couldn't take it anymore. I just saw it and I got up all the courage I could. I got out of bed. I ran right up to that thing, right to its face. And I just went, ah, I just scared it and said, get out, And I probably looked like such a weirdo to anybody else who would be watching. But I heard right away, because I had been hearing the spirits in my head forever. It just said, you just scared the heck out of that. And I was like, I know. But
now you know how I feel.
It was about that spirit was showing up because I was getting out of control. And that spirit, that shadow was like a shadow of myself telling me, you're out of control, dude. You got to stop this. This is the kind of weird stuff you're doing. So I did. I slowed down quite a bit. That spirit went away. The second one is I was in a relationship that I shouldn't have been in.
This is powerful.
Yeah.
This is powerful. Thank you for sharing.
And so this is for all you people who have ever been in this type of thing too. So I was in a relationship that I shouldn't have been in. I was in that relationship because I should be in a relationship. That's it. For the sake of being in a relationship. I didn't really love that person or nothing. Yeah, or thought I should be. It's very confusing for me back then. But so we got in a relationship and we even moved in together. That was a big mistake. That person I was just not compatible with. I don't know what I was doing. I was freaking out. I was second guessing myself. I was pretending to be someone I wasn't. And I couldn't even sleep next to that person anymore. So I used to sleep in the spare bedroom. When I started going into the spare bedroom, I used to have the same dream every night. I was like in a huge mall parking lot. It was empty. There's a building over here, and I'd be way over here. I would be there and look across, and there would be this, it was a very dark, shadowy looking thing. No face, no nothing. If I walked to the left, it walked to the left. If I walked to the right, it walked to the right. It just matched me, and it was the scariest thing, and it kept happening over and over. One time when I was having an especially bad argument with this person, I went to go lay in my bed. I was like, I'm just mad. Just leave me alone. I fell asleep and I had that dream again. But this time, I moved to the left, it moved to the left. I moved to the right, it moved to the right. And then I remember sitting there in the parking lot, and I don't know how I could do it, but I just said, who are you? What are you doing here? I don't want this anymore. And all of a sudden it kind of popped up a little bit like that, and then glided across the ground at a breakneck speed right towards my face. And right before it got to me, I woke up. When I woke up, it was right on top of me, and then I woke up again. So I had a dream within a dream with this thing, and it was the worst thing ever. But you know what? After that, it scared me so bad. I got up out of that bed, and the next day we broke up. I was out of that house. And you know what happened? That spirit never showed up again, ever. And that was because that was a shadow part of me. That was a bad part of me. That was bad. I was literally destroying myself. And that's what this being was trying to tell me. You're doing something bad. This is what it is. This is the feelings. This is everything. And so I think a lot of shadow people aren't necessarily evil. It could be aspects of yourself trying to tell you you're in a bad situation or something needs to change. I know it'd be a lot easier if one of them could just call us on the phone and go, hey, Dave, it's me, Shadow Dude. Anyway, you need to get rid of this because it's just that's not how it works, unfortunately. But it will try to get you to a space.
That was something that came to a level of realization, because in the house we were in, something introduced itself as demonic. Something tried to get me to follow it. It would give me money, wealth, fame, and I was not interested in that. And I can't say what I said here on radio in my dream, where to go. Then it told me its animal form, told me how to spell its name, all this stuff, right? And I couldn't find this information. It just showed up without looking about 10 years later. Everything I'd been told in the dream was true. All heck did break loose in our house. And then now looking back at it, first of all, I know it was meant for us, as me, meaning Dell and I, and my eldest, especially, not so much the youngest, but things that we needed to deal with, things that we had to look at. I went through a divorce, and then, I'm with who I'm with now. But my point is, the house was full of black mold. It was not a healthy place to be. We needed to get out of there. And again, this is just something that we came across that we are looking at. So I don't want anybody that's hearing this to think that we're negating your experience. What we're doing is sharing a different perspective. And again, we always don't mention this, but the thing is, we're sharing with you what we have through our own experiences as well as what we receive from spirit. Because I have a friend who has named the Hat Man and the Shadow Guy. She's trademarked it, Heidi Hollis. She's been on my show before. She's very spiritual. She's very, she's met with Jesus. She's talked about many of the experiences. Now she feels this is something demonic. Now, the thing is, where does the demonic stuff come from? Dave and I have had many conversations on air as well as off air. Is there a hell? That took a long time for me to unravel, coming from a Catholic upbringing and everything else. I don't think there is, but are there lower astral planes which are evil?
There are. Yeah, I'll explain something really quickly. This is my thing. Okay, like even with my near-death experience, and I always knew as a child, there's no such place as that burning place. Here's the deal. This is the best way I can explain this. In the spirit world, the spirit world where we live and all that other stuff over there is nothing negative there. There's nothing. But anything from our thoughts, from being humans, thoughts are things, and thoughts become things. So as far as demons and evil and bad things, yes, they've been thought of. That energy is out there, and then somebody's going to perceive it in whichever way they perceive it. Now, because of the spaces that I work in, I have a hard time perceiving those things because I've had them try to show themselves to me, but they don't scare me enough. Nothing scares me. It's almost like it's going to show you what you're afraid of. It's almost like this comment down there. What are big, tall ones with black, oval, red eyes as far as shadow people go? That is what you are putting together for that. It could be a lot of people are coming out.
Dave and I aren't always going to agree.
Yeah, we don't always agree. But I think shadow people a lot of times are going to look however we need to perceive them. But if you perceive something, it is real. So I believe that there's a demonic energy because that energy is here. So many people have put that fear out there. It does exist here, and it might exist in the astral. But I think as far as like when you talk about the lower levels, like when I talk down, yeah, there's 7 lower levels and 7 upper level. And there are places, everything we think about, it has to go someplace. So it goes to one of the levels because that's what it matches up to. But I think those levels are in the astral realm and they are accessible to humans. So I think if it needs to be seen, if the best way to put it, if it needs to be seen, if you need to see it or you need to experience it or you need something about it, that's going to show up. In fact, one of our experiences coming here is I want to know what it's like to see something negative in a form. So who knows? Maybe that's why there are some people here, and that's all they deal with ghosts. They deal with demonic things all the time, because to them it's real, because they see it.
Okay, so
and I can't negate that.
Okay, so for me, I always say I'm not going to know the answers. I don't think any of us will until we go back home ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
Where we came from. But I do know, including ourselves, we had very real experiences. Like I know, and this is not common, but it does happen, that Dell was thrown 15 feet across the kitchen. And believe me, he didn't believe it. He didn't tell me about it for 2 days. It happened in the middle of the night. He went to make a sandwich. He cut his arm all up. He had the voltmeter out with his electrical because he refuses to entertain this. He's got to debunk it 6 ways to Sunday, which isn't a bad way.
Yeah.
some people have had some very physical, terrifying experiences. So the reason why I thought it was so relevant, because I still am questioning about what happened to us in that home and why. But it really resonated with the fact for me that when I looked at the big picture, and this is another reason why, and I said this to you off air, Dave, is I often say to people when I talk to them, or I'm on a podcast, we never went looking for the paranormal, it found us. I say I wouldn't wish our experience on a blade of grass. Not that a blade of grass is any less or any more than I am. We are one. But my point is, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now if I hadn't gone through that experience. So just thinking at the big picture, did we build that in? Was I going to need that kind of push to be on the path that I was meant
That's
to be
that's kind of
following?
what I was talking about. I'm not negating these things don't exist and
Mhm,
don't happen. I'm just saying it doesn't exist all the way over.
mhm.
All the way over, it doesn't exist, but it does exist here, and it does exist in the astral plane. I've came across some pretty spooky things. But like I
Really?
said, for like you, it probably was Lorilei. I mean, if you know if you're meant to do something, it's kind of like, well, maybe somebody needs to scare the heck out of her and do this to her and get her
And I'm
questioning in order for
open
her to
to
have
it,
that. Yeah, and
and
then
I'm open to
like
looking
me,
at
yeah,
it.
like me, I had sepsis and pneumonia and died. They're like, not to say it this way, but maybe
Yeah,
we need
you
to bump,
did. I just
maybe,
about
yeah,
fell off the phone.
yeah, maybe we need to bump this dude off so he gets it because he's not getting it right now, and
Mhm.
that's what happens to us. So maybe that's it. I mean, I will never claim to know everything, and I will never claim to know all this. There's some stuff I'm very skeptical about, but the only reason I'm skeptical about a lot of things is because I see a lot of people jump on the bandwagon. Like Laura Lee's experiences were real. They happened to her. They were real. But I do know people who have told me stuff to come to find out later. I'm like, really, that's not even close to what happened, because they were jumping on that bandwagon. Or there's been paranormal groups who will purposely, and not just paranormal groups, mediums as well, who will go to a location and literally say that it is haunted no matter what. They could have not found nothing, but they will make something up. And I only know that because I was with about 7 other mediums one time in a place, and there was one specific medium. Everywhere she turned, there was something demonic in her. And that's all there was. And that's because people were interviewing about the demonic stuff. And that's why she
But
kept saying
the
it.
reason why we thought we'd talk about it, and that's the beauty in
Mm-hmm.
this, right? And whatever resonates with you, take what resonates with you. Or we all, even on my other show, I say this, and I know we'll encourage it here too. If you find something that resonates with you, or maybe a bit and a piece from here and there, run with it. Start
Take
doing
it.
your own
Yeah.
research. Start looking. That's how we learn. That's how you're going to find what works for you. Like Ida shared a experience here. She said, I've never feared evil, always felt safe in my bedroom. I woke up one night, stared at it as it was outside looking in my room. We stared at each other. I asked for protection, and I'm guessing she meant from her guides, because I know she's quite connected with her guides, and then went to sleep. Any part after that taken, I'm not quite sure, sorry. Any something after that taken had like a black wedge directed at my head or body, no matter who took it or how many were in the photo. I'm not
Oh,
quite
any photo.
any
Oh,
photo, any photo.
taken after
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
any
I
photo.
got you. Now
Okay.
that makes sense, Ida. I have seen things like that where people have these experiences and then you take pictures of them and it's like this there's anomalies and back. I want to comment on her second one. I also feel the higher our vibration, the less they can reach us. And then I have a question for you, Lorilei. So
Okay.
that kind of scary experience got you into where you're going. Now, since you're here, don't you find yourself having less of those experiences now?
Yes, that was the part I was going to add. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
not having anywhere near the experiences. But you know what? When we lived in our previous home, I
Mm-hmm.
used to say there's a fine line between fear and knowing to stand in your dominion and your power as who you are and connected to a higher source. And it's true because, like I said, you can throw a 175-pound man with nobody being there. And we've had many strange, weird experiences. I'm going to write a book about it, and I'm hoping it will help people with the fact that there are answers out there. But the other thing with everything being energy can't be created nor destroyed. It's got to go someplace, like you said, Dave, right? It's got to be transferred from one place to another. So the more we think about these experiences, and I used to get angry when people would tell me this in the beginning, the more we talk about it, the more we speak about it, the more we do it, that energy's got to go somewhere. And I agree with that now, because now that we're in this home, we have a few little things here and there. Like I can tell you this, when we moved in, Emmy had this floppy dog toy. Okay, there was no way on God's green earth it could stand up. And we're sitting there putting a piece of furniture together. The toy stood up, took 2 steps and fell over. And Del said, "Did you just see that toy?" I said, "Stand up and take 2 steps and walk over." He goes, "Yeah." We both just looked at each other and went, "That was weird." And then went back to doing what just accept it. Like, what else are you going to do? Right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's weird. I mean, even in my house, right to my right over here is a closet. In that closet, now there's nothing in it. It doesn't scare me, but there's something in that closet, because I'll go in the other room and I'll hear noises in there, and there's nothing in there. It's like a little attic closet with a hot water heater, and that's not the hot water heater making noises. My cats go crazy. My one cat, if I'm sitting here, if I start to sense something, I'm like, I think I kind of heard something. My cat runs up to that door. So I mean, stuff like that happens. Now, is it evil or demonic? No, probably not. It's probably just, it could be literally anything. I'll leave it up in the air. But when we were talking about fairies and all that before, I'm pretty connected with a lot of beings that seem to hang around me, but only because they know. Lorilei probably has this too, I'm sure. They know, hey, they can hear me. So here we are.
Well, that's what another thing I said, that I've met many people. Hi, Rose. She's over in Australia. Welcome glad to see you here. No, because the way I explain it, this is what Spirit's given to me, and you feel free to jump in and give your 2 cents worth once I say this, Dave. But they've showed it to me on the other side. Like I'm in the beginning, when I first started relearning, because it's always been with me, the typical questions: what angels are with me? What are my guides' names? The whole bit, right? Mm-hmm. And then as I got more connected to Spirit and started to understand this, they don't use names on the other side. It's energy. They know each other by the energy, and it's oneness. So they said when they're looking across the veil, if you will, say down to earth or whatever they're looking at, everybody looks like little pinpricks of light. And this was an analogy to work with my brain. So they said, but those that are awake, like, know that they can connect with other spirits and hear. We can all hear, by the way, but those that are really actively aware, they were using the analogy of when you're watching the scary movies and it's a black highway and all of a sudden the big no vacancy sign shows up. But the reason they gave me that, not so much from the positive side, it was from things from lower astral realms, can also see those no vacancy signs. So you can get connected. They're going to try and connect with you. They know what I was trying to say is they know that you can hear and see them, is what I'm trying to say. Same as earthbound. That's why, and nobody is earthbound, by the way. We all have the choice to leave eventually when we figure it out, and they do.
Yeah, they do.
Does that make sense?
A lot of them do. Yeah, they do eventually. Yeah. I don't know exactly how they see us, but I know when they talk to us, because when I just knew when I was over there, I just knew what was happening. It was like, I meant more earthbound.
That's why I added it. You're right. Yeah. Not from the other side. Angels don't see us that way, or guides. That's what I meant to add. I was reading comments and I did throw it in there, but it didn't connect. It was more for those that stay on this plane rather than crossing into the light. That's how they see it. I'm sorry, that's what I meant. That's how they see
exactly. And those ones who haven't left here are the bad ones, or the ones that
angels and guides. No, they don't need to see us as pinpricks of light or anything else. No, they don't.
But you know what's really funny though is the angels obviously can see us because I've had angels that I've been talking to describe the person I'm giving the reading to, or describe a friend of theirs and stuff. So I guess they can in a way. I don't know. I'm not an angel at this
I
point.
meant earth people that are earthbound, or when you've got lower vibrational type.
I think don't they? It
probably.
kind of feels it feels like they see our aura and they can tell if you're like a heavy drug user or a heavy drinker, or if you are in total despair, or if there's anything off on you, that shows up in your aura. It does. Ask anybody who reads auras; they can tell. Right, certain lights around you, and I know.
Okay, I want to add something really quick there, really
Go
quick,
ahead.
just to prove it to you, and you don't have to be on the other side. My sons have abilities, as most people do, but young children, I never pushed it, but I always would answer questions and support. Okay, so I remember my eldest son when he was a little one. I didn't even know he could see your energy field, for people that don't know what an aura is, and he came up to me. And I was in a lot of pain that day. And I always thought I hid it from my children. Okay. He was about 4 years old. And he walked up to me and he said, Mommy, he goes, how come you don't have the colors? And I go, I'm sorry, honey, I don't know what you mean. Well, normally you have all these beautiful colors. And he's using his hands to show all around me. He goes, today it's just gray. There's nothing. Yeah. And he was talking about my energy field, and I could not believe
you could see your aura. There's a lot of people who are natural aura readers. I wish I was, but I'm not. I mean, I see auras. I can see them around people, but I see them internally as well. So it's kind of like I can feel the aura. So it's a little different, or feel the colors. That's amazing about your son, though. There's a lot of children coming in now who can do that. But
I didn't know he could.
How they know.
I didn't know what he was talking about, Dave, until I got him to, like, what are you talking about, sweetheart? And like I said, I was in a lot of pain that day, and I thought I had hidden it from him. And here's my kid running around checking out my energy field without knowing what it is. And he knew because there was no colors that day.
And that's the time, like a negative spirit, like you said earlier, which ties into it, a negative something, whatever it is, if that can see your aura, it would know, haha, this one's got a gray, icky aura. That's one's vulnerable. There's kind of, I swear to God, it's almost like a lion taking out, the weakest of the gazelles. This one's got a low vibration. Let's go after this one and see if she takes it, falls for it.
Do you want to read Shannon? She's a nurse, so she sees some interesting stuff.
So I watched the spirit walk past the door the other day. My coworker who also was terrified. I just shrugged it off. Coworker, we're fine. He felt differently. Yes. I love hearing stories like that because I know that they happen all the time. Did you want to do our reading? You said for Shannon? Was that who it was for?
Oh, well, let's ask. Okay, Shannon. Yeah, you haven't been here before. Rose hasn't been here before. And for those that are new to the show, listening. What's that?
Go ahead.
All I was going to add was, I forgot to mention it. We get so excited about what we're talking about that we're passionate. So Dave and I have something called the predictable reading. So sometime during this 2-hour period, we pick somebody that lights up for us, and we will give you a reading from spirit, what we're picking up, whatever it may be. So Dave picked out Shannon today. So do you just have a message for her, Dave, or you wanted to ask something?
No, that's fine. Because I don't want to run out of time and not do what we want to do.
I'm so glad I tried.
Do you want to do Shannon as well, or do you want to pick someone different, or is both concentrate on Shannon?
Let's do Shannon, because Shannon hasn't been here before. So
okay, hi Shannon. So here we go. So Shannon, if you could just type down there, it's okay. If for me to look in your energy, and I can see what kind of reading we get in for you.
I know she'll be okay.
Yeah. Oh, she'll be okay. Okay.
I just have a super cool relative that I would not be surprised if this person popped their.
I don't know if yeah. We'll see. I don't have any people here right now, but I can talk to the guides on it to see where we're at. Okay, Shannon.
He's tuning in.
Oh, thank you. By the way, anybody listening to me, I talk out loud to my guides. I won't have a huge conversation, don't worry. They're showing me something about you, Shannon. So I was asked, what does Shannon need to know at this point in her life? And hopefully this isn't too general for you, but it should be well. Thank you. So anyway, they show me a train. When they show me a train, the train is you. Okay, the train's always you. So that's what I pay attention to. Thank you. This train is an older train. The train has been through a lot of things. It looks like it's been refurbished or something. So if it's been refurbished or something, it usually tells me that you've done something with yourself lately, that you've changed maybe on the physically outside. Thank you. But that looks really pretty. Thank you. So as we're going down in your brand new body, which by the way, I don't know what your physical health is right now, but anything that's wrong with you is totally fixable. Just so you know that it's totally, I mean, I don't know what fixing means to everybody, but you seem to be doing pretty good. You've got quite a while yet. You're going into this really green pine forest at this point, and that's all around you, this pine forest. I don't know what the pine forest means, but when I look at it energetically, they're telling me that there is a newness coming up. A lot of times, like, you're leaving the winter of your life, and I know it's winter, but that's not what I'm talking about. You're leaving the winter cycle, so it's almost like I laid low for a little bit. But now it's like, you're just being reborn again at this point. Pay attention to the things that you want to do in your lifetime, okay? Anything you want to do in your lifetime, all your dreams from a child or anything, you need to go ahead and entertain the thought of doing them, because you are not too old, you are not too anything. It's your perfect timing. Just because you dreamed it when you were a little child doesn't mean that you can't have it as an adult. But that's coming up for you. I don't like to give bad readings, and I can't even give a bad reading on you because of the fact that it's so beautiful. The vehicle you're in, which, like, they show the train, which is your body and everything, there's stuff that had been done to it, and you can do more things to it. It only gets bigger and better. It's kind of like, I want to go down the tracks and I want to feel really proud about myself. But that's pretty much the reading. You're just supposed to go do what you're supposed to do, what you want to do. Don't listen to other people. If other people go, that's stupid, look at them and say, no, you're stupid, and then go do it. That's just a very important thing at this point in your life. They don't want you to keep waiting on stuff, because I think you keep waiting to do these things, and you don't have to. Just go do them. Jump out there, jump off the bridge, just jump, boom. And you'll have it.
You'd love. Wow, bang on, Dave. She just said. And Rose over in Australia said, Laura, thanks for sending me the link. I normally miss you. I'm trying to do that, guys. There's a Facebook event and I invite people. So go ahead. She said, wow, bang on, Dave.
Oh, that was correct. Good. I'm glad it was correct. I hate when the only time when I am wrong, I never blame spirit. It's always going to be me if I'm not in my space. But it was really easy to set myself aside for you, Shannon. I don't know what it is. I think you have this pushy, wonderful energy, and that's probably why. It's kind of like, Dave, get the hell out of here so I can say something. So yeah, Shannon, good luck. Everything's going to be going good for you.
I did pull you a card, but he gave you such a great reading. But I do want to tell you, because I'm familiar with your dad's energy. We don't normally do mediumship readings. I love your dad's laughed. He's got so much energy. He just wants to know, you already know this. So Shannon, he adores the ground you walk on. He's proud of you. Keep doing what you're doing. But I'm going to pull a card, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to add something to Dave's reading, but I'm not. What Spirit's asking me to do, I'm going to do a reading, and for anybody that hears this either live or in the recording, and it resonates with you, it is meant for you. Go ahead, Dave. I know you want to add something. Go ahead.
Real quickly, I don't know if it's your father who had the cough. They kept coughing and there was gunk in their throat, and then I felt a push right here in my chest. So I don't know if it was a heart attack. It didn't feel like a heart attack, what they normally give to me, but I felt something up in my lungs, everything, like I was systematically shutting down. Does that make sense to you? Is that your dad?
Dad, yeah.
Okay.
He's got huge energy, Dave. He's got huge.
Yes, he does. He's got, listen, he's like literally standing in front of me and does this. Mwah, mwah.
I know. That's what I was saying about the I knew she had the very bad cough.
Yeah, the very bad cough. Okay.
I don't always see people, and I was doing free 1-question readings, and he came through. I wasn't planning on doing mediumship, and he is larger than life on the other side. So full of so much joy, love, like just exactly like you said, like just blowing
Yeah.
kisses. So proud of her.
Shannon says we think he died of a stroke. That's probably why he gave me the pain up here, but it didn't quite feel like a heart attack. So maybe that's what it was. Normally I get a tingling down here. So I do think though he went really quickly though, because thank you, right? I know. Fast, on my way. He said I was on my way.
Doesn't he have the coolest energy?
He miss you.
And if you'll meet Shannon one day, I know you will. She lives in my city, and she's a nurse. And I know you don't mind because you've shared before, Shannon. But she said it was very fast. Yeah, he's amazing, like amazing.
Thank you. One last thing, Sharon. And I'm sorry, I normally don't do mediumship readings, and I don't like that. But this is personal information that I just wanted to give you because I keep seeing, he keeps showing me him walking with you down a hallway, He said, you go fast. And he said, you keep getting distracted. He said, I'm standing right here. I don't know. You are a nurse. Was that true?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's why. You've got that energy is there because you can tell that you actually are so selfless. Your energy goes to people. If you think that there's anything wrong with them, your energy goes to them because your dad says, I'm standing right there and I'll be trying to get hold of you. And your energy goes away from me. And he's like, I'm right here. He understands that you do. Yeah, he's with you. He walks down this hallway. It's an empty hallway. There's an echo in it. And I wish I could get more, but that's about all I get. He's not being too pushy because he knows what it's
card.
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you, sir. Yeah. Okay, yeah, thank you.
He's amazing, and I knew he was there because I could see him. Like, I don't know what it is with him. He just came right through. So this is a card for everybody. I pulled this from Keepers of the Light, Kyle Gray. It was the first one, actually the second one. And it says, charity, prayer and contemplation connect with heaven, and ask and you shall receive. But this color right here, everybody, the pink, ask and you shall receive. But the missing ingredient I am hearing is to focus on love. Dave and I often talk about service to others versus service to self. So when you're asking and you shall receive, but they also want you to remember that if you've been asking and you don't receive, try to look at the bigger picture. Okay. Because a lot of times we think we want something, and then maybe a couple of months later when we didn't get it. And I know there's people out there that will resonate with this, that we go, oh, thank God that didn't happen. When you see what really did happen, because the thing you asked for didn't. But always when you're asking, taking some quiet time for yourself, just clearing your head, couple deep breaths. If you can, meditate. Meditation doesn't mean sitting in the lotus position for hours. It just means even a few quick moments to be able to clear your head, connect, breathe, and listen. There'll be maybe your body talking to you if you've got something going on. It could be coming from your guides, but trust, listen. If it's meant for your highest good or someone else's, and in love, try to follow through. And that's it. So I'm going to let Dave tell you where to find him. You guys, this goes by so quick. We love it here. Love it.
Well, you guys, you can find me on TikTok under Spiritual Medium David Hanzel. I'm on Facebook. My podcast is called Mystic Stew. It's a very short form. It's not live. It's a very short form, like 15, 20 minutes long one. So if you got a short attention span,
it's on Anchor, right, Dave? Anchor?
Anchor, Apple, Amazon. It's on a lot of platforms all over the place. Just type in Mystic Stew. If you want to get a hold of me or book a reading, you can go to theywhispertome.com. And here's something I'm only going to say on here right now is if you put in the code Mystic23, if you book a 45-minute reading and put in Mystic23, it'll take off 20%. And I'm going to keep that going just for a couple months while we're doing our show.
That was nice. And remember, you guys, Dave does not contact people for readings, and that's the only place you can get a hold of him is at his website.
Yeah, always remember that. A lot of people try to imitate me. I never solicit readings. If you want a reading from me, you got to go to my website because I will never tell you.
Me neither. I want to thank you all for being here today and the comments and questions. We try to get to them, but like I said, Dave and I love to talk. We love talking about things we're passionate about. So if you ever want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me on facebook.com/the Angel Rock, whether it's book a reading, I do mentoring, I do teaching, crystal Reiki, energy healing. Also, I have 2 groups on Facebook, Paranormal University for all things paranormal and the Angel Rocker Tribe for many of the things we talked about tonight. Dave has a group too. You want to mention it quick before I add the rest?
You have a Facebook group called The Spirit Experience and a YouTube channel called The Spirit Experience where we'll let you know about that one. But go join The Spirit Experience because the YouTube channel, because there'll be a surprise probably in a week or so.
Yes, and I have a YouTube channel also under the Angel Rock. So we are moving to our new time next week, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So it'll be starting 2 hours later. Stay tuned. I'm trying to remember who we have up after us right now. I think it's Paul Francis, one of our new hosts from the UK. I think he's, because we're switching spots with him next week. So I think he's after this. Also, the Angel Rock, Monday night, 6 to 8 p.m. It'll be easy to remember, both shows, though they're completely different, same times on the same network, UPRN. And next week, I have a returning guest. She's amazing. Her name is Sonia Roy. And we're going to be talking about, she calls them hybrids. We call them fairies, nature spirits, many things we talked about. We planned this a while back. So make sure to tune in. We love you all so much. And thank you for being here. So we'll be back. Same space, 2 hours later, a permanent time. Okay.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Remember, what's at the foot of your bed? You can let us know next week.